Let me introduce Archita. And the way I'm going to introduce Archita is if anyone was on the last workshop that we ran, which was 3 months ago, we run these every quarter. We had 5 different speakers all sharing their journey. Every single one of the speakers completely independently in their presentation mentioned Archita was the person that had helped them get one or more of their board seats. So Archita is an incredible example of a connector. She's also an incredible example of somebody who has built her profile up. And so please give Archita a very warm welcome in the chat, and I look forward to hearing from you. Archita, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Callum.
Great.
Hello, everybody. So glad to be here. And thank you for all the love here in the chat. Truly appreciate it. So a little bit about myself as we look through my background, etc. I just wanted to share a little bit about who I am and what got me here. So I'm a commercial growth strategist, and I help private equity backed and Fortune 500 companies unlock top line growth, specifically focused around strategy, product marketing, and execution. And alongside that, I serve as a board member, keynote speaker, and an activation coach for like executives and leaders. And my focus is really simple. How do I turn potential into momentum? And how do I make growth repeatable for the companies I have an opportunity to serve? But here's the honest part. When it came to my board journey, I wasn't sure where to begin. And just about 18 months ago, I was on one of these calls, and my CV was very heavy with corporate operating roles. And I couldn't quite see how to translate, that whole corporate journey and experience into the boardroom. And now fast forward 18 months, I've had an opportunity, as you saw on the previous slide, and I have an opportunity to sit on multiple boards, about 6 different boards, all kind of come through over the last 18 months across a whole slew of industries. I'm also the host of a podcast called Embracing Only, where we share stories of leadership, where you're the first, where you're the only, and how do you shape your journeys, whether in corporate, outside of corporate, as an only, and own all aspects of that. And I share this because many of you today on the call might feel the same way, wondering if, how your experience maps into board impact. And the truth is, like Callum, Christian, Marek, and others have shared, you're a lot closer than you think. And my goal in this session is to show you the practical ways to make that leap so that you can step into the boardroom with that clarity and confidence. So as we see here on the next slide, my boardroom journey started as an intern. And I say this as an intern because I learned a very valuable lesson back there as an intern, and that was around connections and building connections. So I was an intern back in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I've spent about 21 years in corporate so far. And my first internship didn't go as I had hoped for it to go. I didn't enjoy the experience. I didn't enjoy being an engineer who was sitting in the basement and working on breadboards back in the day. And so I reached out to my supervisor at that time, and I was like, I'd like to do something different that's closer to the customer. And so they were like, absolutely. I know you've added this impact. Feel free to shadow a couple of individuals and see where this takes you. And so I ended up going onto the manufacturing floor, shadowing a manufacturing engineer, shadowing a quality engineer. And when I did that, I realized I loved the world of quality systems. And so that one opportunity of making the ask, where sometimes we're afraid to make the ask, gave me my opportunity to step into quality. And that opened up my first expat opportunity at 23 years old, where I got to move from the US to Quebec, Canada, and help transform a manufacturing plant to get ready for an FDA audit at that time. And it was during that time I was doing a workshop or a presentation, and a VP of marketing at that time was like, if you ever need a job in marketing, give me a call. And so I was like, okay, sure. I'm sure he just said this to everybody. But this is another really important lesson I learned very early in my career, which was sometimes people open the door and they say that, you're invited in. But we just feel like because we haven't seen anyone like us, or like ourselves inside that door, they didn't really mean it. And we never take them up on the offer. But one Friday, I actually did pick up the phone and I reached out to Kevin. That was his name. And I was like, hey, Kevin, you mentioned if I ever need a job in marketing to give you a call. And so he's like, Archita, this is great timing. We have an opportunity. Someone just put in their 2 weeks notice on your way back from Quebec. Like, we'd like to welcome you into marketing. And I had a chance to lead our international marketing business. And through that experience, I got a chance to grow our businesses from 1.5 million to 8 million to 350 million out here across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But just by taking someone up on their offer to kind of do what they said, they'd like to create an opportunity for me. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do. There are so many people in your network today who probably have said, hey, give me a call if you ever need any help, or give me a call if you'd like this. And we never take that opportunity to actually follow through on that communication. And so I spent a significant amount of time building my corporate CV because I thought I was going to retire like my parents out of the corner office at some point in time. But about 2-3 years ago, I had a change of heart and a lot of different changes from a personal perspective that helped me embark on this, like taking a bet on myself and starting my own journey, where I ended up becoming now a fractional CMO to private equity backed businesses. And exactly 18 months ago, I was sitting in California with my sister and I was like, someday I'd like to get on a board. I think it's too early in my journey in my corporate life right now, but I'll put that down as maybe by the end of this year, I'd like to land one board seat. And just as you put things out into the universe like sends things your way. And one of my clients at that point, because I also shared what my goals were, and this is the other thing I learned as part of the board journey, share with as many people as you can, like, hey, these are my goals, this is what I'm seeking, because the universe brings out plenty towards you. And so one of my clients said, Archita, there's this webinar that's on by this guy called Callum, and it's on LinkedIn. Like, you should go check it out. And so I went on and I registered, and I was like, there were 1,000 people who had signed up. And I was like, okay, these are bots. I don't believe it for half a second. But I was like, whatever, I'm going to go join it. I have like 30 minutes. I'm going to go check it out. And my 30 minutes turned into 2 hours because of all of the due diligence I had done, like Deloitte programs. My friends had, done a bunch of certifications, individuals who had spent tens of thousands of dollars on these various programs had not yet landed a board seat. And there were even more programs of how to get women ready for boards. And I was like, why are women the only ones who need to be ready to get on boards? I didn't quite understand that. But what I appreciated about the webinar from a Veblen perspective at that time was there was no conversation about if you're a woman or a man or anything. It was like, how do we improve diversity on boards, and how do we get people from all around the world adding value with their varied experiences on boards, and how can you be empowered to do that yourself? And I love that idea of being empowered, because any journey as an adult through an adult learning program, an adult like networking program, the onus is on you to help drive that journey. And I love that kind of onus put on me. And so I stepped into the Veblen program, and 30 days in, actually less than 30 days in, I landed my first non-executive advisory board role. And it was an unpaid board role. But one of the things, the Veblen program and a lot of folks and peers and Callum shared as well, is your first board seat, go after an industry you're not familiar with. So you don't get operational, and you can actually step up and like think as an advisor. And so it was actually an industry, it was SaaS supply chain company. I'm still on the board of that company. But I started off in advisory board roles, and then slowly they started stacking up. I ended up helping build 3 boards as well. And then about exactly 12 months in, and through that first year, I converted a lot of my unpaid board roles into equity board roles. So there was like skin in the game. And then exactly 12 months in, I landed my first supervisory board role, which is a paid board mandate with sitting fees and everything associated with it. And if I had, literally a year ago when I was sitting and I was thinking, I was just looking at an unpaid advisory board role to drive impact and cross-pollinate like best practices. And here I had an opportunity and a blueprint to kind of build that journey out myself. And some of the key wins for me along this journey, without a doubt, like Christian is one of my accountability group members, and my entire AB19 like accountability group has been so critical. because a lot of us, after spending significant amounts of time adding value to other corporations, when it comes to clarifying what our value is, we might struggle with this sometimes. And so just having the group help you articulate it in a space that feels safe and also help open up other opportunities has been deeply significant. I've had a chance to be a chairwoman of the board on Veblen, and Marek was one of the board members, and that opened up another board opportunity within one of Marek's companies themselves. And so the impact you're driving, people are watching, and it creates all of these other opportunities. And the craziest thing of all of this was my paid board opportunity came from the most unlikely way, or what I thought was unlikely at that time. I am a Kellogg, Northwestern University Kellogg grad, and we do a lot of, we give our time to do alumni, to do interviews for the incoming class to kind of fill the next cohort of team members. And so I was doing an interview, and I was interviewing a CEO of a company based here in Germany. And at the end of the interview, she's like, "Can I get 10 minutes of your time?" And I said, "Absolutely." And she was like, "Archita, I went on to LinkedIn. This goes to the profile conversation that Callum had. I went to your LinkedIn. I looked at your profile, and I saw you're sitting on a bunch of different boards. We are opening up a supervisory board role in our company, and it's going to be posted on Monday. I'd love for you to apply." I would not have known about this. I would not have, known this existed. I would not have gotten the opportunity if I hadn't done the work to kind of go create these opportunities before and put blood, sweat, and tears into those advisory board roles, etc., to help create this paid board opportunity. So my ask to all of you is, kind of go out there, create your opportunities, and share, what you're creating with other people. And just the last piece is some of the board roles I applied to. I applied to the board, I had an interview, and I spoke to the founders, and I was like, "You don't need a board." So also be really honest when you're having these conversations. And I realized that they actually needed help on something completely different. And so I ended up working with them to first build that structure before they went in and then created a whole board that they had in place. So you never know where the opportunities will come. And I'll talk about the GLG piece here in a bit as I go through the key components towards building your boardroom journey itself. So when you look at this, most people think of networking as access to opportunity, but for me, a lot of times it's alignment. So the right board fit doesn't come from, a lot of people are like, "I don't think I know enough people. I don't have enough people in my network, etc." But it's not about how many people know you, but from how well the right people understand what you bring to the table. So every connection that you make, from whether it be your university alumni teams or individuals that you meet, in exhibitions that you might attend at your company, etc., how can you help articulate your value in a way in which they can help drive that alignment towards potential opportunities maybe out there into the future? And to me, like Christian shared, I've had an opportunity to connect with many Veblen members, and just understanding how they clarify their clarity, their shared values, has helped us build boards together as well. The second piece is around this knowledge, right? So a lot of folks are, I need to be really competent. I need to have all of the questions. I need to know what matters most. But it's not about having all of the answers. It's about knowing which questions matter most to that particular founder, that particular CEO within that particular industry, and then having the frameworks and that experience to navigate that uncertainty. So if you were to go look at your CV and look at, okay, in all of the times of uncertainty within my career that I was navigating for my company, or even as an individual, etc., what were some of the ways in which I navigated that experience? Actually give language to that, and then utilize that as you are sharing your experience and you're asking your questions. And one of the biggest learnings I had to have while moving from an operator to a board member was asking better questions, because you are getting paid to not give fast answers. They do not want answers from you. They want you to ask questions that activate in their world how best to approach what they are seeking. With regards to profile, I used to think like 3, 4, 5 years ago, I've been on LinkedIn, I think a close second there, Callum, like 15 years or so, but actively been on LinkedIn about 4 years. And I used to think a profile was just like, listing all of my experience, etc. But it's about knowing and understanding that it's your signal. Your profile is your signal. So how can you clearly communicate the value you bring in the boardroom? And through the Veblen like archetype program, etc., I noticed that I'm a bridge builder, like I connect people, and I am a catalyst, like an energy catalyst. Like I like to activate people. So I like to connect the strategic dots across people, process, and profit. And I help boards move from like conversation to activation, especially in moments of like ambiguity or inflection, right? So understand what is your signal and how can you communicate it with regards to the value that you bring to the board. And then finally, when you look at like value and leverage, my lens has always been around like commercial and human, because value doesn't come from just contributions, but it comes from being able to say, well, okay, here's what's missing, here's what's being avoided, and here's what we can act on right now. So as board members, our jobs is to figure out what is that pattern recognition, and you're probably doing that today across functions, across regions, etc. But to a founder, to a company that's out there, they probably do not see this. So how can you help connect the dot between vision, execution, and like that to help build that revenue resilience as well? And finally, I'll say this, the best board members, they don't just offer perspective, but they create leverage. So whether it's opening doors to new partnerships, or for me, it's like stress testing, like a pivot that the founder is looking at. My key focus at every one of the board meetings is how do I help a CEO recalibrate their leadership narrative? And how can I be that board member that multiplies momentum? And these might seem like a lot of like words that are out there, but a lot of my friends and like colleagues, and I think Callum alluded to this, they call me the human ethernet, and I take pride in that because when you meet people, sometimes we just approach it in a one-sided conversation. How can they add value to me? That's a terrible way to look at things, right? It's like, how can we create value together, right? And the value might not happen today. It might happen sometime here in the future. But how do you take that, file that, and then find ways in which to create value together? That will really help you as you're building your board journey. And so finally, in my like 18 months of like building my own board career, going from an operator to a boardroom member, here are some of the key lessons I've had a chance to learn. And I keep having to remind myself because, I'm still early in my boardroom journey myself. And I didn't figure it all out like day one, but having that accountability group, having the learning from Veblen and a community to kind of tap into whenever I felt like I was lost has been really helpful. And one of the key things I learned was boards don't need more experts, they truly need integrators. And I've seen what happens when, everyone at the table is smart, but no one is connecting the dots. We've seen this in meetings we sit in, right? Like nothing gets delivered, nothing happens. But the most effective board members, they might not be the most credentialed, etc., but they're the ones who have the opportunity to like listen deeply, zoom out, and ask that one question that shifts that entire conversation. And you have to know your lane. If you know your lane, you can own your lens and you can articulate your value in the language that they seek with regards to like governance, risk, or growth. And you only do this through practice, right? You do this as you're sitting on advisory boards. You do this, you could consult on GLG. Like if you all go to GLG, like you can sign up as an expert, you can consult for people, you can start learning the language of like how to advise and not dictate to people. You can join micro mentor, etc. Like you could trial all of this, or you could be a part of the Veblen community and actually get like a real firsthand board experience. The second part, another big lesson I learned for sure, and we've probably seen this in all of our careers, is diversity alone is not enough. You need courage in the room and context to back it up. So for my supervisory board role, it's in a very male-dominated industry, and one of the board members, an outgoing board member, asked me this question in the interview. and it was a woman, and she specifically asked me, and I know why she asked me that question, because she probably was being challenged for, why are we trying to interview women from the global south, etc. But they asked me this question, and they said, Archita, if we said the only reason you were invited to this boardroom interview today was because you're a woman from the global south, how would you respond to it? Imagine like hearing that in a boardroom interview. But I was not like perturbed by it, because if you've been a first, you've been an only in various different spaces, you probably hear this a lot. So I said, I really don't care what got me to the table. I'm here and I know the value I can deliver to the organization while I'm at this table. And that really helped them. They were just like, okay, wow, okay, she is here, she owns her space. And I'd say this to each and every one of you, you'll have so much to bring to the table. Don't let what that table looks like or access to that table look like hold you back from driving the value that you can deliver itself. And the last bits here, when you're looking at some of the key lessons, is governance is the floor. I say this, but contribution is the ceiling. And what do I mean? When you're sitting on a board, being compliant doesn't make you a high impact board member. That's just the requirement. Like, we need to ensure that the company is doing business the right way. But what matters is whether you can stretch a conversation beyond just that discrepancy in the quarterly report into growth, into like, what are we not seeing over here, to really ensure that you're driving even further impact and contribution. And last but not least, with regards to lessons, do not discount your lived experience. The stories you have and the stories that you carry of navigating performance culture, of being a first, of being an only, these are levers for better leadership, of better humane decision making. Use those and share those in a way in which they can actually help engage with it and help drive that as well. And so as I bring this to a close, here are my 3 future goals. How do I join 3 more supervisory boards across APAC, EMEA, and North America? How do I deepen cross-portfolio learning by stepping into being a private equity board observer? And then finally, something that I'm deeply passionate about is how do I help support underestimated leaders by giving them structured access to more boardrooms?